I've done a lot of really exciting projects throughout all these many different career stages I've had in the scientific world. Wow, where to begin? I got started, I was just talking to her earlier about her research in HIV reverse transcriptase, which is probably the most famous HIV protein responsible for allowing HIV to infect humans. And I started out doing HIV reverse transcriptase research, and it was absolutely fascinating. In a technological sense, it was like traveling back in time, because some of the techniques that I was asked to use as a student were like sequencing gels and things that were really old school, but that taught me a lot of different skills that if you go to a more modern lab, I wouldn't have learned. Really, really cool project. From there, I moved on and I started with my cancer research at Harvard Medical School. I was very lucky that I was selected to go to the Kennedy School of Government for a leadership initiative. And there I met a physician scientist who is a faculty at Harvard Medical School. He invited me to intern at his lab the year after that. So in 2012, I went back there, and I got to culture tissue from like brain tumors, breast, lung, ovarian, pancreatic, colon. And I specialize in pancreatic cancer because it's one of the most difficult to detect. By the time it is detected, unfortunately, your chances of survival are very, very slim. And that's something that I'm still very passionate about. And I guess that kind of fast forward many years, after I became an AI engineer and all of that, I wanted to test this AI that I built, and I said, you know what's better than to test it on cancer? So initially, I wanted to test it on detecting cancer, I mean pancreatic cancer. But many of you may be familiar with the fact that AI and machine learning algorithms are very data hungry, and finding the data is very difficult. So what I kind of said, okay, for a proof of concept, I will work with something where I can get the data, and that is breast cancer. So I had built this really cool artificial intelligence that basically works like a human brain, essentially. Even though it's a bit of a black box, it works a lot like a human brain in the same way that you teach a child or that you teach a dog to fetch something, and then you give it a reward for fetching the correct item. It's basically the same. In this case, my AI is capable of looking at a mammogram image, looking at the patterns in the image, it zooms in on the lesions, and then it can detect whether this lesion is malignant or benign with over 99% accuracy. And I reward it every time it gets it right, so it gets more and more powerful and smarter as we go along. And so my second stage for this project would be trying to detect pancreatic cancer using machine learning, so that less people die really because of lack of early diagnosis. So.
That's an amazing project.
Thank you.
And so is that what your company is focusing on right now?
Yes, that's what one of my companies is focusing on right now. I do many things, but that's one of them.
All right, pretty cool. So any amazing projects at FPL? What's going on in the engineering world?
FPL always have amazing projects. And one of the main one is keeping the lights on for you guys.
Right.
But we do have cool things that we're working on, and one thing that might be visible to the students here, since some of you live in Miami, you might see some of the train on the white line, the yellow bright train. Last year or so, I was involved in designing the power system that was feeding the station for those trains, and also in Broward County. We had to build what they call a vault. A vault is that system that have all the equipments in it that you know what the load is going to be for the train, and you have to calculate how much power you're going to need to provide for the train, and kind of build this vault. And also duct bank system, which is trying to put things on the ground to be able to feed throughout the city and things like that. We also have several projects such as the solar projects. But my team, while we work, is trying to work on the providing power to the site, so that way they can get the project going. But overall, we have several projects that we're working on all the time. So.
Oh, that's amazing. Solar in Florida is a perfect fit, right? We've got the sun. So moving on a little bit, sort of leading to this spot. So did you ever feel that your agenda was disadvantaged or hindered you in any way in your career path? And if so, why?
I don't know if it was a hindrance or anything like that, but I know it was something that I have to be mindful of. I know, for example, as a mom and and a wife, I know perhaps I have to think twice on different opportunities that may come my way, but I still have to be able, I still do my job well. So, the opportunities are always gonna come, but at the same time, you have to make yourself available so when they come, so you can be ready. Fortunately for me, I have had good opportunities, and I've tried to take advantage of them when they come in. And, I try to do all of it and trying to stay focused on taking care of everything else as well.
Any advantages?
I have always thought that my gender was an advantage in this field rather than a disadvantage, because there's been a big push for diversification of STEM and to get more women into STEM and retain them in STEM. So there are lots of grants out there specifically for us women to apply for, and that makes it a real advantage.
Opportunities. I keep hearing that word being repeated. Opportunities and taking advantage of them.
I hear a lot about gender inequality all the time in tech, in math, in science, and fortunately for me, I haven't really faced a lot of challenges because of my gender. I think that potentially, potentially women have to work a little harder to be a bit more assertive and to overcompensate in some ways. I was recently at a technology meeting with a corporation that I'm helping with their technology and data science operations, and I'm sitting in a boardroom full of C-suite executives. They're all males, and I realized after the fact that, number one, I dressed up better than anyone. Number two, and there's an important point to this, so I dressed up better than anyone. And the first thing I realized I did was when everybody was introducing themselves, I was very keen on highlighting my mathematical and scientific and strengths, making sure they understood I'm an expert in this field. And then I realized later on I was overcompensating the whole time because this room is full of white males that are 30 years older than me, and they say, why does this 29-year-old girl come into this room and think she's going to help me when I'm this big shot C-suite executive? What does she have to offer? So in some sense, you have to sometimes overcompensate, and I guess, sometimes I do it without realizing, but I think because of that, I haven't faced as many challenges. I think if it weren't for that, I probably would have been like, oh, this poor little girl,
How did you learn or know that it was appropriate for you to do that, right? Was it something someone said to you? Who was that person?
I think I have this, and I always joke, I have this very manly personality. I'm super assertive. I'm like, when I want to get something, I get it. It doesn't matter what it is, it's going to happen. And I think that comes from my personality, but if it doesn't come with your personality, make sure that somehow you get some inspiration and that you get to where you need to be. I had a friend in college who always asked me, how are you so assertive? How can I be more like that? And later on, I've watched her progression over the years. She went from an internship to Washington, D.C. with the government and all of that. And over the years, I've seen how she's actually become so assertive and strong, and she's doing amazing things. So it's something that can be learned, and with a bit of effort and with the right inspiration and the right people by your side.
Yes, I do want to jump in on that because I think I very much relate to what you just said. I guess normally I'm more of an introvert, right? But I had to find ways to kind of get out of my shell a little bit more. So being a little bit more assertive, that's something that I know through the years I had to learn to be. And I don't think if I wasn't pushing myself to be there, maybe I wouldn't be in the position I am today. So yeah, maybe I haven't really seen it overtly done to me that, the opportunities are there, but I think it's because I kind of work so hard to kind of get myself there.
So you're not sitting in the woe is me type of atmosphere. You tell yourself, I'm down, but I am going to get what I want.
Yes. And again, being like an introvert kind of person, engineers tend to be a little bit more introverted. I don't know if maybe you guys can relate to that. So I had to learn to kind of, step it up a little bit.
Okay, that's interesting, right? Do you want to add to that, or they've just said everything that there is to be said?
They said it all pretty much. I'm also an introvert, though. But I find that if we don't toot our own horns, there's no one else who's going to do it for us, except maybe my father. People always tell me, oh, I've heard all about you from your father. And I just say, I'm sorry, because he's really braggadocious. But he's proud, and I have a very a good support system by my family. And I find that we do have to be proud of our achievements and showcase them so others know our value, and we know our own value as well.
So you've mentioned your father. So my next question is, who are your role models, and how do they inspire you? So is your father one of them, or you have others to share?
My father is one of my role models. He's one of the physicians in the family who pushed me, and my mother also pushed me. She is a philosopher and a general overall do-gooder. So between the two of them, they pushed me to further my education, get a terminal degree, and I grew up wanting to help people.
Amazing. Erika, you want to share?
Yes, so I would like to say that my family has been one of the key people in my life that kind of inspire me and always push me. My mom is in the audience. She came to support, and also my husband is there as well. Those are very big support system that I have. And one more role model I would say, I know he's my younger brother, but I always look up to him because he always has vision in his shoulder. And I'm like, okay, one day maybe I want to be like him. Well, his name is Alex. So he's doing very well, and he's the kind of person that I really admire.
Good to hear.
For me, I've had many great mentors, so I think I would do a disservice if I start mentioning some and not the others. It's really hard to point out just one, but if I had to say only one person, it was my grandmother. So when I was born, my parents were in the first year of college back in Cuba, and my grandparents basically raised me full time. My grandmother, although she wasn't educated or anything, she pushed me. She raised me like I was in the military. Like, she wouldn't let me go to school. The school was a block away from my house, and she wouldn't let me go to school more than 5 minutes ahead of time. She said, if you go more than 5 minutes early, you're going to get in trouble. If you go more than 5 minutes early, beyond that, you're going to be late. So this mentality, if you're on time, you're late kind of thing, and this is why I was here like half an hour before. I'm a maniac when it comes to time, and it causes anxiety and all of that. But seriously, she was the one person that, despite not being college educated, she understood the importance of education. And she pushed me to a point that you wouldn't believe. Raised me just like the military, and I will always, always be thankful for that. Because even parents who are college educated and all that, sometimes I've seen it, even in my own family, sometimes they don't push us hard because they sympathize with you, right? It's like, oh yeah, I went through that situation. Oh, it's so hard. Oh, poor little kid. My grandma was none of that. She's serious business, and she's just, everything I have done in my life, I owe it to her in some way.
That is amazing, because it shows you family is important, right? We all need some type of support system. And for those who don't have family, are there people outside of family that can still provide that type of support that you need and help you move on, interest you in chemistry or interest you in something else that you didn't think about? So what advice would you give to our ladies in the audience, and of course our college students, young men, on how to follow or pursue their career, their dreams? You've already kind of touched on that. If we want to focus the conversation specifically on advice.
Get an education. Go as far as you can with your education. Determine what it is you want to do. Determine what your goal and objective is. Write a 1-year, 5-year, and 10-year objective goal plan, and reference it frequently so that you can make sure you're still on track. Find the college that you want to go to after MDC to further your career, and find, if it's a scientist you want to be, find the lab that looks most interesting to you at that college, get some research experience beforehand so you look like the best applicant, and contact the lead investigator in the lab to let them know that you have an interest in coming to that school and perhaps joining their